SEGA is out to beat the king of kart racing, again. That provocative statement has sparked a frenzy among fans, and it is not coming from just any corner of the gaming world. No, it is floating straight from insiders who claim that SEGA's upcoming Sonic Racing Crossworlds could steal thunder from Nintendo's own beloved franchise. What in the world is going on? And how is any racing title brave enough to challenge the legacy of Mario Kart? Today we are pulling back the curtain on the chaos surrounding Nintendo's newest console, the Nintendo Switch 2, and diving headfirst into the puzzle of how Sonic Racing Crossworlds may have discovered a secret path to our hearts, and quite possibly upended the entire discourse about physical game releases. In this epic examination, we are tackling the most pressing questions that have fans on the edges of their seats. Why has the Nintendo Switch 2's intriguing game key card system triggered such passionate debates? How does Sonic Racing Crossworlds manage to stand out as a likely game changer on this brand new platform, apparently providing the entire game right on the card? And crucially, in a market obsessed with nostalgia and brand loyalty, does Sega's newest racer have the potential to reignite the legendary rivalry that once defined console wars of decades past? Buckle up, because we are about to uncover each layer of this story, from the surprising design philosophies behind game key cards to the staggering possibility that Sega might be positioning Sonic as the unstoppable rival to Mario yet again. We will see how the excitement around the upcoming release date, scheduled for the 25th of September 2025, could be overshadowed by the possibility that the Nintendo Switch 2 version might drop a little later. We will explore the controversy that has overshadowed several third-party developers, forcing them to rely on game key card downloads rather than shipping their games in complete form. On top of that, we will ask the big question: why have so many studios adopted game key cards when that choice apparently frustrates so many consumers? First, let us wind the clock back to a time when Sega was seen as Nintendo's fiercest competitor. Older gamers may recall the days of intense console wars, with commercials that boasted Sonic's superior speed against Mario's more leisurely processions. That spirit of rivalry eventually cooled off as technology advanced. New players joined the battles, and Sega pivoted to software, leaving behind its home console hardware pursuits. Yet the competitive spark between Sonic and Mario never truly died. Over the decades, fans nearly forgot just how combative these iconic mascots used to be, only to be reminded at certain times when thematically linked titles, like racing games, put them head-to-head once again. Now, the gaming stage is being set for a fresh showdown. On one side, you have Nintendo, forging ahead with the Nintendo Switch 2. Though it is still in its infancy on store shelves, it is determined to keep the hybrid legacy alive. On the other, Sega has placed its hopes in Sonic Racing Crossworlds, signaling loudly and clearly that Sonic may be ready to say, "Move over, Mario." Indeed, Crossworlds, as some enthused fans call it, is described as a robust, high-octane, globally connected racing experience that aims to push clever design tricks and the iconic Sonic brand straight into the new generation. But let us not get ahead of ourselves. The talk of overshadowing Mario Kart is not just about speedy mascots and slick-level design. The real drama swirling around Crossworlds pertains to whether Sega intends to put the entire game on an actual physical card for the Nintendo Switch 2, in an era where many third-party publishers have embraced the dreaded game key card approach. And if you think the general gaming population shrugs indifferently at that concept, think again. This approach has led to huge debates, with some players accusing developers of betraying the notion of physical media by providing only a download trigger within the boxes. So, where does Crossworlds fall in this debate? The key evidence arises from promotional material discovered by eagle-eyed fans. According to certain observers, newly revealed ads for Sonic Racing Crossworlds on the Nintendo Switch 2 show a box design conspicuously missing the usual disclaimers that would indicate a game key card situation. Typically, you might see a mention or label that no actual game data is on the card, effectively letting players know that their purchase is more of a redemption code than a physical copy. The absence of such a label is fueling speculation that Sega is doing the unthinkable by placing the entirety of Crossworlds on a genuine physical card. Could that seemingly minor design choice reignite interest in physical games on the Nintendo Switch 2? For many, the lure of a real, playable game on a card is monumental. Not only does it let you preserve a piece of game history on your shelf, but it also allows you to share or sell the game secondhand, something that is undermined when the card is only a digital trigger. Moreover, having the full game on card means not having to endure lengthy downloads, copying times, or potential server issues. In other words, it feels like a throwback to an era in which the game you owned belonged to you in tangible form. A point of comparison that keeps cropping up is Cyberpunk 2077, the open-world role-playing epic from CD Projekt Red. That game, in its surprising Nintendo Switch 2 edition, apparently places the entire software on a 64 gigabytes card, bypassing the dreaded partial installation that plagues so many other physical releases. Some fans hail it as an example that third parties should follow, championing the notion that if a game as massive as Cyberpunk 2077 can appear in full on a single card, then maybe, just maybe, lesser-sized games have no reason to rely on the game keycard approach. Your next question might be, why do third-party developers keep adopting these partial solutions if fully featured cards are so beloved by consumers? That is where this story grows complicated. Industry whispers suggest that Nintendo's manufacturing process for producing physical cards at capacities like 64 gigabytes can be extremely costly for game makers compared to standard discs. When a publisher calculates the prospective sales for a Switch 2 title, it might weigh the expense of ordering large-capacity game cards versus the potential profit. If the game's size is nowhere near 64 gigabytes, some publishers fear they are essentially paying for wasted space. The game key card concept, therefore, saves money by reducing manufacturing overhead, even though it is extremely unpopular with many who love collecting physical copies. So the predicament is clear. Publishers can gamble on a bigger cartridge that might not be entirely used, or they can slash their costs by employing the game key card strategy, passing the burden of downloading the rest of the game onto consumers. SEGA, if these rumors about the Crossworlds box design are to be believed, is boldly moving in a more consumer-friendly direction, not too far from the route chosen by CD Projekt Red. No official statement from SEGA has confirmed or denied these rumors, but the fervor in the fan community is reaching a boiling point. Of course, all of this is entwined with the reality that Sonic Racing Crossworlds is only launching on the Nintendo Switch 2 at some later date after the planned release for earlier platforms. The initial release for other systems, as well as for the original Nintendo Switch, is slated for the 25th of September, 2025, but the upgraded Switch 2 edition is ostensibly arriving sometime beyond that. This delay, while likely disappointing for brand new owners of the Switch 2, does come with the possibility of an upgrade path, presumably for $10, from the older Switch version. While some players might find themselves antsy waiting for the fully optimized experience, it provides a transitional solution. You can play Crossworlds from day one, then jump to the Switch 2 version once it is ready. After all, Switch 2 is still in its honeymoon period since it first appeared on the market. Early adopters relish the longer battery life, improved resolution, and the possibility of advanced haptic feedback rumored to be part of the new Joy-Cons. But in the swirl of hype, critics have not been quiet about the uncertain future of physical releases on this new platform. If Sonic Racing Crossworlds really is going the full card route, SEGA could be forging a new standard, or at least demonstrating that the cherished tradition of physical ownership is not yet lost to time. Now, some folks understandably ask how this drama ties into Mario Kart. Why, they wonder, would Sonic overshadow Nintendo's biggest racing franchise? The simplest answer is that the timing is uncanny. Mario Kart sets a gold standard for casual and competitive play, so any racing game that arrives near a new console generation and genuinely tries to push the envelope is bound to be seen either as a pretender to the throne or a legitimate threat. SEGA's decision to highlight Sonic's racing expertise in Crossworlds, particularly when the controversies swirling around Nintendo Switch 2's physical media are peaking, suggests a deliberate marketing push. It implies SEGA wants to drum up attention and perhaps reclaim whatever piece of the racing audience that Mario Kart might not wholly monopolize. Crossworlds is not SEGA's first foray into Sonic-themed racing. The predecessor, Team Sonic Racing, combined familiar Sonic characters with a cooperative spin on the arcade racing formula. While it found a respectable audience, it never achieved the near-universal acclaim of Mario Kart. Enter Crossworlds, touted as an online cross-platform extravaganza, offering local multiplayer and cross-platform play, along with more tracks featuring nods to the broader Sonic universe. Analysts suggest that if it can muster robust netcode and maintain a lively community, Crossworlds just might enthrall racing fans who pine for an alternative to Mario Kart's whimsical item-based formula. But here is where everything circles back to the significance of the rumored full card approach. If SEGA invests in a physical card for Crossworlds that does not require an online download to function, it might convert certain skeptical gamers who are fed up with partial releases. Even for those who are not die-hard Sonic devotees, the prospect of owning another truly physical racing title on the Switch 2, free of mandatory downloads, might be too good to resist. After all, the game key card concept annoys many collectors who like the idea that, decades from now, they can pop the card into a console and be able to play without dealing with defunct servers or missing patches. You may wonder, does that emphasis on a physical product even matter in a largely digital age? For longtime collectors and fans who recall pulling old cartridges from the shelf and dropping them into a console, it absolutely does. Nostalgia for physical media runs deep, and the notion that SEGA is essentially tossing a lifeline to that old-school gaming culture resonates with a passionate subsection of the market. One wonders whether other publishers might follow suit if Crossworlds sees significant sales success, thereby proving that a bigger investment in a large-capacity Nintendo Switch 2 cartridge can pay satisfying dividends. If that magnitude of success materializes, the ramifications would be immense. Crossworlds could become something of a rallying cry for gamers who are disappointed by the creeping dominance of digital-only releases. In a broader sense, it might even shape the conversation around how Nintendo calibrates its relationships with third-party partners, especially if it wants the Switch 2 to flourish as much as its predecessor. This friction between the convenience of digital storefronts and the security of physical ownership is a modern gaming dilemma, and SEGA boldly stepping forward with physical cards could well be the impetus that changes the market's mindset. Now, let us take a moment to catch our breath on the hype train. If you are getting as excited as we are about the notion of a brand new Sonic racer that could stand shoulder to shoulder with Nintendo's top contenders, do not forget to show your support for the people who bring you these deep dives. Give this story a thumbs up if you love a throwback to those legendary console wars. Right, onward we go. Another intriguing aspect is how Crossworlds might handle the mechanics behind a play now, upgrade later strategy. While players will be able to grab the standard Nintendo Switch version on the 25th of September, 2025, their ultimate ambition might be to play on the more powerful Nintendo Switch 2. SEGA has not offered many specifics on what that upgrade path entails beyond the rumored $10 fee, but presumably players can keep their save data, unlocks, and possibly even cross-play functionality. That means continuing your high-speed progress from the lesser hardware to the new console without losing your race records or your place on the leaderboards. If that feature works smoothly, it could be an enormous draw for fans who do not want to sit idle while waiting for the official Switch 2 release. This approach has become more common lately as the industry shifts into new console cycles, but still sees large user bases on older platforms. Gamers do not want to buy a game twice, once for the older console and once for the brand new device. And the promise of an upcharge for the upgraded version seems like a reasonable compromise, so long as there are tangible improvements. The biggest difference, for many, will come down to whether the new hardware can handle higher frame rates, improved textures, or additional gameplay elements that cannot easily run on the older Switch. If Crossworlds taps into the upgraded capabilities of the Switch 2's rumored advanced GPU or new display enhancements, we could see a gap in performance that is large enough to tempt people into shelling out that extra money. However, we must also mention that not everyone is convinced that the presence or absence of a game key card warning on a box is definitive proof of anything. Some have suggested that SEGA might have decided to put part of the game on the card, while still requiring an online download for day one patches, expansions, or other content. In that scenario, the packaging might not display the usual disclaimers simply because the game is, for all intents and purposes, playable off the card, but still reliant on an internet connection for the latest updates. As we well know, day one patches have become painfully common, often overshadowing the original data included on the physical media. That could open the door for disappointed fans if they discover that, while the game can be started from the card, significant content or performance improvements remain behind a mandatory download. We must simply wait for official confirmation or for reliable leaks to see how far SEGA is willing to go. In the meantime, the rivalry angle remains a juicy storyline. Do not forget the long-standing dynamic of Sonic fans who delight in seeing their favorite blue hedgehog challenge Mario in any genre. The comedic jabs directed at Mario Kart's perceived simplicity or item-based unpredictability are sure to add plenty of spice, fueling arguments that Crossworlds provides a more skill-based alternative. Of course, that is not to knock Mario Kart's successful formula, a tried-and-true blend of accessible controls and chaotic races. But as new players gravitate toward the Switch 2, they might discover that there is more than one approach to capturing hearts and competition in the arcade racing sphere. Let us not kid ourselves, though. Dethroning Mario Kart is no small undertaking. Even if Crossworlds turns out to be a physical masterpiece on the Nintendo Switch 2, fully on card, with robust local and online multiplayer, and an adrenaline-pumping gameplay loop, it still faces an uphill climb. Mario Kart is a cultural icon, included in countless Switch bundles in the past, introduced to entire families as a friendly party centerpiece, and recognized far beyond traditional gaming circles. Sonic will have to muster every bit of star power he has left to prove worthy of such a direct rivalry. Yet, the determination behind the scenes at SEGA seems stronger than ever, capitalizing on the idea that gamers adore a plucky upstart who challenges the status quo. Additionally, from the vantage point of the consumer, there is significant appeal to having multiple high-quality arcade racers to choose from. Rather than pitting them head-to-head, some fans will likely embrace both Mario Kart and Sonic Racing Crossworlds. One might serve as a breezy group activity to play with relatives or casual pals, while the other might scratch a faster, more segmented brand of racing. Or maybe Crossworlds will turn out to be the perfect companion piece for those longing to dive deeper into the Sonic universe, complete with cameo appearances from obscure side characters and reimagined zones from older Sonic titles arranged into elaborate racetracks. Yet the conversation always circles back to the Nintendo Switch 2's evolving identity. Handling the question of whether publishers will truly abandon game key cards or cling to them is crucial for a console in its infancy. If the mass adoption of the dreaded partial cards continues, forcing gamers to endure mandatory downloads that might someday vanish, the backlash could be enormous. But if more companies follow the lead of CD Projekt Red and, potentially SEGA, with Crossworlds, the Nintendo Switch 2 might be remembered as a system that overcame early stumbles in the physical media realm and ushered in a new golden age of complete, collectible titles. That is the dream scenario for enthusiasts who remember the glory days of cartridges you could pop right in, no fuss. Amid all the speculation and fervor, we can see glimmers of what might happen if game key cards become the standard. You might say that, ironically, it would hamper the sense of community that Nintendo so often tries to foster. People love to share cartridges, strings of game experiences passing from friend to friend, from one household to the next. That tradition has been part of gaming culture for decades. A game key card bypasses all that. For some, this shift is akin to severing a vital link to the hobby's past. With Crossworlds, SEGA may be taking a stand, demonstrating a belief that tangible, shareable media can still thrive in the digital age, and that fans, in turn, will reward such a stance. So, there you have it, the swirling rumors about a fresh Sonic racing title that might, just might, overshadow Mario Kart on a brand new console, fueled by controversy over physical media. The curtain is only partially lifted, but from what we can see, Sonic Racing Crossworlds seizes upon consumer desire for real ownership, unites gamers across systems with cross-platform play, and invites them to witness the reawakening of a fierce rivalry. However, the final outcome is yet to be decided. Will SEGA indeed confirm that Crossworlds is entirely on the card, or will fans discover hidden catches? Will the Nintendo Switch 2 become a haven for lavishly produced, fully contained cartridges, or will the system slip into a future overshadowed by digital triggers and game key cards? The tension is palpable, and the drama is far from done. We will be watching the official announcements, waiting to see precisely how the marketing, pricing, and distribution strategies line up. And if you are just as invested in uncovering the truth, maybe take a moment to subscribe or follow along. You will not want to miss the next big reveals in the countdown to the 2025 release window. Whatever the outcome, Sonic Racing Crossworlds stands as one of the biggest question marks of the year in gaming news. Could it be the sleeper hit that reestablishes Sega's racing credentials while also advancing the consumer cause of complete physical releases? Could it unite nostalgic Sonic stalwarts with the next generation of speed seekers? As the days tick down, that swirling sense of possibility ignites endless theories, roundtable discussions, and speculative excitement on every corner of the internet. One certainty remains. We are witnessing a pivot point, not just for Sonic, but for the broader conversation about how we buy, collect, and preserve video games. Whatever side of the debate you are on, the journey to that future has become downright thrilling.